And so, just before I left for Israel, there was, left for Israel. I haven't even gotten a ticket yet. They're basically all telling me that I'm not going to be allowed in. But I had one shot. Basically, it was Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. It was the new moon of a certain Jewish month. And I heard about this music minyan where they played instruments at sunrise, a prayer service with instruments at sunrise by the water, just for the new moon ceremony. Wow. And there would be singing and dancing in nature, and oh my God, that was like me. I'm gonna go do that. And so I'm like, and that was actually on by Englewood, so right by the Hudson River off of, I think, Englewood, New Jersey. And then that same day, my other friends from another group of my friends were basically going camping, and the same group, who at least now two people from that group had pushed me to question my relationship with the Torah and whether or not the Torah itself was real. And it was soon going to be up to 4 people by the end of was it 4? 1, 2, 3. I got 3. Why did I think there were 4? Anyway, it was a bunch of people. And so it was getting overwhelming. It was hard to deny and to make sense of all this. And so we'd have probably interesting conversations today, because clearly none of these people took it to the logical extent I did. Many of them still practice forms of Judaism, at least outwardly. So I don't know. Talk to them. But I was hoping that if I go to the prayer service, I'd create this good positive energy, and I would, on my way down, we were going camping, somewhere in Jersey maybe, I don't know, but it was on my way to wherever we were going camping. I could go from Englewood to Manhattan to go straight to the embassy, the Israeli embassy, and fight for my visa to get into Israel. Despite the COVID restrictions, I also was triple vaccinated, so I can go. And I had, not just so I can go, but one of the reasons I did get a 3rd vaccination was that I knew I would be able to go. And so I know I would need it to go, and I did need that status. But beyond that, oh man, so many vaccine conversations. Not yet, not there, not ready. I'm not prepared. I was around so many hippie circles. There were so many anti-vaxxers. Oh, but like, I don't know. I haven't formed an opinion. Am I Switzerland? In Nazi era? Germany? Maybe. I'm undecided. But like, science. I'd lean science. Anyway, as an evidence-based science. Whatever that means. So I'm hoping that the prayer, you're seeing my religious logic. I was hoping that the prayer service would give me good energy, so I would go to the embassy, and if I go and fight my case, that the embassy will have to let me in to Israel. And after that, I was going to go camping with friends, so that was going to be fun. I was also, I believe, bringing one of the beautiful things I loved. So at this point, I was no longer using substances. I was basically substance free. I wouldn't call it abstinence, because I was using wine it was just the wine on Friday night. I don't think I was using any other substance. And so usually when I would bring other interesting things on camping trips, this time I was bringing a Torah. I went and made sure to pick up a Torah from someone I knew, and I just found that to be the most special thing, that I would be in the woods on a camping trip on Rosh Chodesh, on the new moon ceremony, with a Torah, and and there were people who knew how to read said Torah, and yeah, I literally had a Torah in the back seat of in the trunk of my car. Someone had a beautiful, I'll post the picture in this video of this beautiful portable Torah, and they were kind enough to trust me with it, and that was really cool. And so I got the Torah in my car. I literally am carrying the Torah, and I drive over to Inglewood at 4 in the morning, listening to Zusha. Was Zusha there? They were certainly at different gatherings. I can't remember if they were. This was called the Rosh Chodesh Club. It's with a bunch of Persian Jews and some other mixed groups of religious Jewish people, and yeah, it was exactly what it was pitched to be. So I think we got on a boat. There was music, there was sunrise, there was prayers, and I took that energy right into Manhattan, and I went straight to the embassy, and I was like, "Hey, you." Not the embassy. It was some like affiliated group next door to the embassy. They were called. Oh, I know the name. It's like an Israeli. It was like a Hebrew name. I don't remember. Whatever it was called. Some group that usually just helps people in difficult situations. I don't think this group was made to help people like me, but they, for good, was I taking it? I don't. But at the same time, no, they were also working with people trying to get visas, trying to get into Israel, and they specifically were the ones who told me that I needed to commit for the year if I wanted to be able to get approved. And anyway, so I showed up there with all my forms. I had filled out like a stack of forms. There was like so many other forms that I filled out to qualify that I can go and get this visa. The only thing I couldn't sign off on was the year. And so I showed up with my passport and freaking birth certificate and forms, and I marched into the office, and I threw it, and I'm like, I'm looking to speak to the person who can help me. I'm here. I'm Moshe David. I'm going to Israel. And they're like, no. We have a lot of respect, very cool. You came all the way down here, but I'm so sorry. We told you no already. Like, it's not going to work. I'm like, what the hell, God? What? What the hell, God? And I'm walking out of the office, like, in one of these, like, what the hell, God moments. And, like, like I was talking about the word hishtadlus. Like, they say you got to go up to your neck. Like, do everything you can. And then the miracle happens. And I'm sitting there I literally had just closed the doors to Amudim. That's what it was called. Amudim was the organization. And I get a call, and it's one of these rabbis with Or Sameach who I was working with. And I pick it up, and and he's like, Moshe David, do I got good news for you? And I'm like, what do you mean? The only people who can help me just told me no. There's no hope. And he goes, well, I'm like, unless you're going to tell me to turn around. This was the only office that could help me get in. He goes, well, I guess, no, I'm not going to have you turn around. We got another miracle. There's some loophole, someone pulled a thing, and we're letting a whole group in to Israel, and the only thing you need to do is tell me yes or no if you want to come. You will come with a whole group of people on what's called a mentor's mission, and you will get to go to Israel. At that point, I had been connected to Or Sameach. I did the virtual mentor's mission. I was even talking to a rabbi every week. We were talking about prayer. I was very interested in prayer. I wanted to write a whole book on prayer. I thought the Amida was a gateway to healing and a way to really understand ourselves. And there is some powerful concepts in there, especially if you read it from a certain angle. So, oh my God, is this me saying that prayer can be powerful? Oh my God. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. And so yeah, that was crazy. Holy shit. And so with my miracle now in hand, I go straight into the camping trip. And it's interesting, I wasn't using substances, but some of the people were. And so I was feeling all sorts of weird. But the next day we did read from our Torah. Did we? Am I confusing? I could be confusing my trips, but I think the next day we did read from the Torah. It was very cool. And on the drive home, again, this question came up of whether or not the Bible was real. And so I'm coming off of the trip, and there was like it wasn't necessarily heavy, but there was a variety of substances. The level of variety kind of shook me. So I was like afraid of all these substances. I don't want to like say that this group was some like drug using crazy people, but certainly there were a decent amount of psychedelics. And other angle. There's like all these crossing angles. Remember guy I met on Turks and Caicos, billionaire man involved with maps? Well, the day I land from Turks and Caicos, it's 7 o'clock at night, and I haven't done my daily dip yet. Maybe I did it in the morning before I left, but I really wanted to get in the dip at 7 o'clock at night in New York in April, early April. And I go straight to Brighton Beach, jump in the water, and get out, and I'm like freezing. And someone sees me and goes, "Did you mamish just go in the ocean?" I think I was wearing a kippa, so they knew I was Jewish. And I go, "Yeah, mamish. I really just went in the ocean." And they're like, and we get in this conversation, and I'm like, "What do you do?" And she goes, "Oh, I'm one of the head fundraisers for an organization called MAPS." And I almost fainted. I'm like, "Oh, I just met your guy." And you're like, "Oh, you met my guy." And I was like, "Wow." And this was like the synchronicity of those dips are magical. Anyway, so she's like, "Oh, well, guess what? There's a training. You're studying psychology?" I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "There's a training. The deadline's in 2 days. Throw your name in the hat and we'll make sure it goes through." And so I did. And suddenly I was signed up for one of the early MDMA certification groups from MAPS. I was learning how to be MDMA certified therapist, which means that once legal in the state, I would be able to administer MDMA to clients and sit with them in sessions. So I'm officially certified by MAPS. I finished the training, and yeah, that's a real thing. So I was doing that also over Zoom at the time. And so I was trying to really form opinions. A lot of what they spoke about and what I still, and a lot of the pro-psychedelic therapeutic community talk about is set in setting and context and doing, it consciously. And I certainly could have hoped for more conscious usage, I guess. I don't know. But I'm bringing this all up to my therapist. And my therapist is notably anti-psychedelic. Feeling like, again, all these just crazy, it gives you crazy ideas and makes you, and so she's anti-psychedelic and is disturbed by the presence of these ideas that the Torah may not be true. Seriously disturbed to the point where she herself was debating whether or not she wanted to, I don't think she was going to do this, or I was debating it. It's confusing who was what, but I suddenly get into a panic. Like, do I need to tell people? Here's me telling people. Who cares? Nobody gives a shit. Or do they? Oh. But yeah. So I thought I was going to have to report this, and I'm like in a panic of like, who reported to who? I don't know. The rabbis? Who are the rabbis? What am I going to say? But I did feel I was gone. She was saying things like, "Wow, I really trusted these people. I can't believe they're like that." Which is so fucked up. It's to say that based on literally people believing things that historically are likely to be true, if not just true, but for believing that she says they're untrustworthy. For even questioning it. They weren't even saying they believed it. They just questioned it. And that made them suddenly untrustworthy. And for me, a susceptible mind, already in heartbreak, already very moldable, was like, "Oh my God, you're right. They're the ones making me question this. They're the bad guys. They are the problem." And there was a friend in that group who very much understood this, because he used to be more religious, so he very much knew that I had, and that was that. It was right after the camping trip. It was after all. And I get back home, and I reported this to the therapist, and based on what the therapist was saying, made me panic. and split off from these people. I basically stopped communicating with them for at least 2 years, with many of them. Not all of them, not fully. But I was at the very least like, the question was alive in my heart, and that's why I separated it from myself. I said it was not my question, it was their question. I wasn't questioning anything. I had full emunah. Hashem was clearly leading me to Israel, is what I said. Looking at the story, like, it's hard to parse out fact from fiction. Was something leading me to Israel? Maybe. Was it all to find out about ultra-Orthodoxy because I needed to go on this journey? Because if I didn't go into ultra-Orthodoxy, what would have happened at that time? It's hard for me to say. Like, let's say I went back now and was like, hey, Mo, you're trans. She's lying. There's nothing wrong with you being trans. She's being abusive. I love you. Like, let's say I did that. What would he have done at that moment? Like, where was young me? Where was 26-year-old me gonna go? If not Israel, was I gonna tell me to get on a plane and go to Hawaii for the summer? Or was I gonna go say like, go immediately, do not pass go, do not collect 200, go find a therapist that's affirming? Maybe. And then what? I don't even know. It would have been interesting. Let's say I would have agreed with my friends at the time and said like, wait, this might not be true. Would I have slowed down the practice? Would I have not gone to Israel? I had broke up. I felt like I was chasing my pyramids. It was where my pyramids were. If not, where the hell else were my pyramids were? I was seeking something to hold on to. I wanted some meaning, some purpose, which in and of itself could be like this grander existential thing that's connected back to, my original death salience when I was 15 that basically made me ask of what is a meaningful life and have I lived it all? But, yeah, and like this difficulty, like struggling with the question, with the possibility of my own death, and that's why I needed something important to hold on to. Probably, it probably still is, but for whatever it's worth, where I was then, I can't change it, which sucks. I hate saying shit like that. Like, it's important because it's important to grieve. Why talk about it if I can't change it? It's important to grieve it. It's easy to say I can't change it. It's harder to think about just how different it could have been. Because if you think about just how different it could have been, then you actually have to start to process every single day. The tragedy of every single day of not being able to be real and authentic and myself. Gender dysphoria did not hurt this much when I wasn't that conscious of it. It was still hurting in all sorts of different ways, and it certainly influenced my life. Just going, oh wait, I can be a woman? I am a woman? Oh, fuck. And now, if we talk about like in terms of trans care for children, like how much work it's going to take for me to even get to a place where I feel like I am comfortable passing. And if that is even my goal, it's not even necessarily my goal, but let's say it was, like passings and like looking to the outside world like a woman and sounding like a woman. It's certainly much easier if you start at a young age. It's not impossible at any age. It's still possible, but it's certainly much easier if you start at a younger age. It's not the only important thing, but it can be a very important thing. Like, fuck, hey. Never a year mattered. And there was me at 26 at an inflection point in my life. And I decided to go to Israel. Now, let's say I didn't get the LA. If we're going to say, let's say I knew about, trans care. We can give another one, though. Let's say I didn't get into the doctorate program, and I was in a master's. My master's would have ended right there in May. I would have nothing to fully return to. Maybe I would have had some kind of post-master's training, but it would have been potentially easier to delay or even figure a way to do in Israel maybe. There would have been less restraint, and I possibly could have got stuck in Israel for longer inside of a 24/7 yeshiva, which is, we'll get to that experience in a moment. 24/7, the yeshiva I would end up in was a work and learn place. We got to do both. Which is again what made it accessible for me. I don't think I was ready to commit to a place that wasn't both. Hey, it's me. We're gonna zoom in so I can lean back. Off. Okay. Hello. Can you hear me from over there? Hello. And so I got my miracle. I was about to go to Israel. I had this big question, and there was one last thing. I was headed to a mind travel night, which was this Syrian guy who kind of went on his own journey, and he plays piano around the world in a meditative way for people. It was a very emotionally powerful experience, and it was in Central Park, and so I went over to Central Park, and I was wearing my yarmulke at that point, and I did this meditation where I was walking around. And literally, while I was walking around, I literally stepped in poop barefoot or barefooting on the ground. I hoped it wasn't human poop. It was horrific. Anyway, I had these really powerful realizations of just like moving through things. I think I saw the shape of a heart in the clouds and like feeling like I was on my way after just making one of the hardest decisions of my life, which was to end the past relationship. And he invited people to speak about their experiences after it was done. And during my experience, my eye got caught on some woman that was very attracted to, who was journaling. And I wondered what she was journaling about. And it looked like in her one hand was a journal and in another hand was a Tehillim book. And I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, oh my God, maybe this is the one. This is how it's all going to happen. And she gets up there first, actually. He said, does anyone want to speak? And she goes, or was it me who got up there and inspired her to speak? Maybe I went first. Oh, I can't remember. We both would end up speaking. Either way, I spoke about my experience of moving through the relationship and like understanding, and despite how scary it is, that I'm going in this right direction, and I feel really good about it. And I'm excited about what the next steps have to bring, and that I literally stepped in poop, and it's some grand analogy about life. I can't remember what I said, but I was really creative in making everything seem for the good. Gamze Latova. This too is for the good. And she got up and she had given back a ring that day, an engagement ring. Holy shit, yeah. And made a speech about that. Wow, like that day. And so we were both like in this like wild place of like doing radical breakups and moving forward. And I certainly didn't hand back an engagement ring. There was no ring. But to be that long in a relationship in the Syrian community, it's very much as I don't want to say engaged. There's, like boat engaged. Remember boats, so there's no boat engaged. But there's this feeling of like it was a path, and if I said yes, it could have been. And I'm so glad that I never, that I didn't. Who the hell? Again, all the possible, when you're looking at the branches of how things could have gone, could you imagine of how if I had my realizations 4 years down the line, could there have been a kid involved? A divorce? Oh, messy, messy, messy. Would I have ever left, Oh, so yeah. Wow, grateful. But oh, geez. And so we end up chatting afterwards and getting in this awesome conversation. She was a Jewish person, a Jewish girl, and she was actually in her own religious debate, normally wore skirts, wasn't that day, but loved that I was wearing the kippa, was like, yeah, you go, be proud and of your, it was because this was a blue funny kippa, and we ended up looking for a pizza shop after. I don't even know if we found the pizza shop. I remember giving her ride home. She was recommending some books for me. I was ready to again, a little bit, was this the alchemist moment? I'm like, fuck, I don't need to go to Israel. I already found this person. This is it. It's over. My journey's over. It's done. I'm good. Who, me? Savior complex of someone's gonna save me? God. Anyway, who? What? This person? Mental health conditions? No, never. Maybe. And so we connected briefly. Yeah, it was, and then she was gone. And I debated for a second of even going to pick up the books. If God, I don't know if this was a test of if I was going to be sucked into this is the Yetzer Hara, it's the devil trying to stop me from going to Israel. Or something, even though I don't even know if she was interested in me. I don't think she even was. God, but anyway, I end up, okay, it's night before I'm leaving Deal. I'm leaving from Deal, and this is a big deal. And it's really heavy because, so I specifically scheduled it so that I would go be there for a significant religious, quote unquote holiday. I was going to be there for Tisha B'Av. At least I'd get that. And I was going to be able to come back and not have to miss the Syrian parties. Can you imagine? I was still nervous that my mom would kill me. My mom would kill me, and by extension, dad, enmeshment. My mom would kill me if I didn't make it back for the August parties. When I made that video about parties, this is not just this was I'm planning a religious journey where I'm asking some of the biggest questions in my life, and I'm needing to navigate whether or not I'll be back for the parties that summer, because I'm now single again, and how my mom will never accept an answer that I decided to be in yeshiva and not going to these things. I didn't have a partner anymore to protect me from those questions. And so, God. And so I am about to leave, and I was going to a bonfire the night before, and literally almost get hit in some crazy car thing, it was a near miss. Nothing happened, but it was close, and I was scared to shit out of me. And then I get home, and a 7-foot mirror almost fell on my head and cracked in my room randomly. It was this scary. I was probably anxious, and things were happening around me with my anxiety, but it was certainly just scared the fucking shit out of me. Something was breaking in my life, and it felt very symbolic to have a 7-foot, or this mirror taller than me, nearly fall on me, and I dodged it and cracked all over my bedroom, as I got my bag packed. But I do leave, and it was very emotional. One of my nephews gave me these little goggles to take with me, that I bring them. I mean, this is really powerful moment of leaving on this religious journey, and knowing that I may not come back the same, and everyone kind of knowing that might happen, but also have not wanting me to go, but also being supportive. It was a loving exit, and that I was going to be, and it was just sad because I had lived with them in Brooklyn all year, specifically my nephews and my family. I lived there, and I had lived there the past, certainly in the summer before that was COVID. We had all that intimate time together, so now we weren't gonna, Uncle Momo was gonna be gone. Or And so I took the goggles and, oh, wow. And I got in the cab. No, oh my God, worse. I called a cab to take me to the airport, or the Uber, and the first Uber canceled, the second Uber canceled. I had 4 cars cancel on me, and it looked like I wasn't even. And the thing was, the ticket into Israel was only valid if I came in with this whole group, apparently. And so I had specific forms that only let me through the Israeli border with that I would be together with the group, or maybe I don't know. I basically, it was very important that I was on this flight, and I didn't cut it that close, but suddenly after all these cars canceled on me, it became very clear of just how close it was going to cut. And one could say, like, why didn't someone drive me? I guess the airport was far from Deal. I don't know. But eventually I got a cab to agree to come, and the driver was literally named Saturday, and I just found that hilarious that his name was like affiliated with some stuff. You see, I was finding meaning in every single moment. The driver's name was Saturday, and so single, double, triple pay, not gonna work on Saturday. And so that's a Chabad niggin for you. And so, or maybe some, I don't know. And so I get in the car, and he's like rooting me on in my journey. And I've had many of these moments in my life, but it was really cool. Just these like moments with this cab driver, just like, this whole little cool space. And of course, as I'm telling this over, like, I don't know if he certainly doesn't get to go on fun little spiritual journeys in the airplane, whatever. And so it really does. I don't know this man's life, but it was really nice and really cool. And I was really appreciative. And yeah. And so, a 2-hour car ride of sharing life story. And so maybe I'm in your car right now. Anyway, and so I get to the airport and I'm late, and the check-in line, it's COVID, so like there's like all these freaking things, and like the line is like 1,000,000 miles long, and I'm like, fuck. And I didn't have like a first class thing or anything like that, but I saw a line for people that did, and I hoped that maybe one of my credit cards would approve me for it. Also, I was supposed to get COVID tested 48 hours or 24 hours in advance, and the Syrian doctor put the wrong frickin', I guess their organization, that office was a mess. But the date I did the test 24 hours in advance, but he dated it wrong, or his office people dated it wrong. And so I had an improper COVID test with the date wasn't officially dated right, and I was really late, and I basically asked the person what I should do about being that late. I didn't even mention the COVID thing, and the airport person said, get online, you're going to get a new ticket. A new ticket? Yeah, you're not getting on this flight. And I'm just like, no, you don't understand. This is my miracle journey. I need to get on this flight. And what do you mean, all this? I came all this way. I did the scary thing, but what about the waterfall and the freaking mirror and Saturday? I'm not turning, and the Abudim and the Rosh Chodesh Club. I'm not turning her now. And so I end up on this persistence. Certainly one of my greatest strengths. And so I end up on line, or all this is tragic that it's like, I guess it's fun too to relive. It's tragic that it was like, what do you mean, Mars? You're about to go there and become ultra-Orthodox. And I'm like, oh, gee. But also, these things got me here, for whatever it's worth. So that too. And it was cool. It was an experience. So I'm in there panicking, and I'm just like, Amuna, mamish, Amuna, just believe in God, have faith, it's gonna work. So I get on the line that was for people with like a premium United first class status, and I thought maybe I had it. I was hoping someone in my family had it, and I could just say a thing. Privilege. And so I wait the line. It was much quicker. went really fast, and I get there with my suitcase, and I look at the lady, and I hand my COVID form with the wrong date on it, and she sees the form, and she sees that I don't have the right ticket at all. I had not had the right ticket. I had not had the right anything. I was not supposed to be in that line, and someone else right to the right of me was getting problems. I could hear it. I could hear the conversation. They were turning people around. And she just looked at me, she gave me a smile, and she said, "Here's your ticket. Enjoy, safe travels." Like, I was, I, 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 I wrote a poem about like God being this operations manager and like opening the gates for me. Lucky break. And so you could see how I thought that God wanted me to be Jewish, can't you? And so I make it through airport security, and I'm running and one of the funniest things is because I'm late and I'm running, and I make it to, it wasn't just about making it to airport security, it was an El Al flight, and I was hoping I had a streak going that I didn't miss a minion. I had literally freaking jumped, and I didn't miss a dip either, so I literally had come out of frozen dips in the winter, literally shivering, and didn't go home first so I can go to Mignon. I would be shivering and dripping in the Stiebel in Manhattan Beach, and you can ask, if you're ever in the Stiebel in Manhattan Beach, they'll remember Moshe Dathid, who was dripping wet, and Franco Kid was dripping wet, and they were from Mincha. And so I was hoping to make the Mincha on the El Al flight, which was like just before boarding, and I'm running there. They're boarding soon, and I'm gonna miss the flight, but I'm also thinking about, and I remember I got to the minyan, and I'm like, yes, there's even a minyan. It was right there, a group prayer service, and some guy standing next to me goes, "I don't know if you're happier that you made the flight or you made the minyan," and he said it in jest, but it was real for me. I was like, to me, I really felt like it was this like thing, like, I don't know, this point system. It wasn't points, but it was like this, oh yeah, it's all working, it's all synchronicity, it's happening, it's real, toxic positivity, maybe, like SpongeBob-ness, maybe, I don't know, it was crazy. It was a high, a dopamine high, a feeling like I'm in the righteous path, maybe, yeah. It felt good. And it was safer than drugs? Relatively. Still homophobic and racist. Relatively safer than drugs. Relatively. And so, my minions were like my AA meetings. They were all 3 times a day. Groups get together, and it's an interesting concept to have a group of people get together. Of course, it's only for really men. Women barely show up. It wouldn't even be counted as part of the 10. It needs to be 10 adult men. It's helpful for mourners. It's certainly, a lot of these prayer services are filled with people mourning so they can go honor their dead. And anyway, we got on the flight, and I land in Israel, and there's this guy with, oh God, there's this guy. I was told I need to look for a guy with a gray kippa, and I find him. He was my friend on the trip, ended up being a close friend who would change my life down the line. And if you remember the story about the wedding night where I was helping a friend through the procedures, and got in trouble for it, it was that friend right there. He's also the friend that introduced me to our place in Queens. Whoa. And so, wow. And so yeah, and there I was, and there we were, this group, we were, us and a Birthright came around the same time, and we were the first American groups, or first any outside group allowed, basically, of tourists allowed into Israel. This was June of 2021, since the pandemic had started. Oh, sorry, allowed into the occupied Palestinian lands by the Israeli government. Occupied Palestinian territory, the whole thing. It's hard. I don't know. It's Sheikh Jarrah. I think that was the name. I think that was the name of the neighborhood. I want to look it up. Anyway, I got to Or Sameach, straight to Or Sameach. Straight to the hotel? No, straight to Or Sameach. And that place. I knew one person there. My brother had a friend there. But other than that, it was like all new people, people from around the world. The classes were on a level that I had never. This was way higher than anything I ever learned in Flatbush. This was different than anything I did at Aish for the 3 weeks I was there. They were talking about Talmudic law, and like it was just so over my head. It was a walled city, something to do with a thief and these walls, and what are we all, I guess it was about communal responsibility of protecting the city. Interesting discussion. Anyway, the rabbi would have this thing after where he'd let anyone ask any question. And I basically said, I have a friend. I have a friend whose weed this is. No, I have a friend who believes the Torah isn't true. What would I answer that friend? And he laughed. He said, well, that's a joke. I've disproved that theory years ago. Go check out my blog. And I think I looked at his blog for half a second. It was like some blog from like the 90s. I don't know. But he had a PhD, so maybe he was trustable. And there was another rabbi there, Rabbi Breitowitz, and he was this genius. He looked like, I think he was a Harvard law rabbi thing. These were not dumb people. I didn't fall for, hit me over the head. I mean, I say it was hit me over the head with a Gemara in ways it was, but it was also like a lot of just the idea. It wasn't even that they were, the way they were answering the questions. They didn't even answer my questions that well, but it was the idea of their authority, of their positions and their intellect that just made them so enticing, and the whole place enticing. It justified my position that this was potentially true. And I remember, even I was at one point debating which class to go to. I was split between a couple classes. There was even a split between the group I came in with was really more of an intro group, and I was less intro. And it's interesting dichotomy there where they were having all these more lighter classes, and I just wanted to jump into the heavy stuff. I wasn't there to just have some light intro. I wanted to know if this religion was for me. And I remember debating about which class to go to, and a rabbi told me, if you're debating between one Torah class and another, that's a good place to be. Debating between two things, two good things. I still use that line sometimes, not Torah. It's debating between two good things, you're in a pretty good place. And at some point I wrote a poem called Wet Clay. I was in touch with my mentor, but not that much, or our sessions were much less, because at this point, most of my day-to-day was now in an integrated place. I didn't have my program traumatizing me, because I certainly had already completed all my program requirements and said goodbye to my client. That certainly didn't happen in Israel. I had done that before I left, for sure. And so I completed the program requirements, and there certainly wasn't a story where I literally was on the phone on an Israeli train while they were speaking in Hebrew on a public loudspeaker, while on the phone with one of the clinic people. That never happened. While racing to make another meeting over Zoom. Gone. And so I didn't have family stress, that the family stress at least wasn't there. The stressors in general were less. And I was really just invested in the space, and especially in her mind, I was like in this safe place. Not to mention, her and her family were donators to this place and active supporters, and had an apartment next door, which again for me felt safe. Like, oh, this is a place my mentor therapist likes. I am safe here. I am safe from people with crazy ideas and psychedelics and all their craziness. I am safe from the LIU and their system of pain and whatever they're trying to teach in the gay rights classes, and God, safe from safe zone. Oh, I was still in my MDMA training, ironically enough, and they were teaching. I was actually disappointed, and at the time, at least, in some of what they were teaching, it was much more of a cultural education and less of a practical education. I was just wrapping that up. The cultural is like understanding who we were in cultural context, understanding our privileges, and I just wanted to learn how to work with MDMA. But it was an interesting course. And I remember I was, part of it was potentially to have a mind-altering experience, and I instead just wrote about my past mind-altering experiences, or did like a breathing experience. And I remember the founder looked at me and he goes, well, you're a curious one, and there's no way that you're not gonna go and, or the leader of the class, he goes, yeah, you're a curious one. I imagine one day you'll go and try this. So I passed the course. They don't require you to do MDMA to pass the course, but they certainly like recommend you to be consciously aware of what altered states can be like. There are other ways legally to get to altered state of minds using breathing techniques. Yeah. Anyway, be careful out there, folks. Disclaimer. And so that wrapped up, and so I didn't have a lot of stress, and I'm talking to my mentor, and I wrote this poem, Wet Clay, that I felt very moldable. And I was getting dizzy, I was getting all these headaches because my whole worldview was being exploded. I was starting to buy into ultra-orthodoxy and the ideology that basically I was stuck at two doors, and one door said it was true and one door said it wasn't, and I was really having trouble with the middle door that said maybe. Because for the maybe door, well, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. First off, maybe it's true? I guess, mate, what are we doing? Hegelian, not Hegelian, what's the word? There's like the thing where you say, oh, if heaven, it's the gamble. Like you might as well be religious because when you die, you'll get in at least. I'm forgetting. Just Google it. It's the classic gamble. It was one of the last things my friend tried on me before I left officially the religious community. And God, it's such a silly argument. That doesn't make sense. Because what if being religious means I'm not enjoying my life to the fullest here, and I'm certainly not living a life of truth and authenticity? Take that gamble argument. And it's the gamble, as in you might as well be religious so that if heaven was real, then you'll get into heaven. It's a silly argument. And so, yeah, I was dizzy. I was surrounded by people buying in, young people who newly buying in, and all these older and some young rabbis who were already bought in. My mentor, who was clearly in this world, and again, while she wasn't like, you should become religious, it was unconscious, and it was, caked into every, especially how she reacted, wow, I can't believe that they would question the Torah. I thought better of them. That kind of comment. When I'm coming with clear, like, a therapist, and she would at times say, this isn't therapy, but that's not good enough. Saying this isn't, I thought when we said it wasn't therapy, it was just because it was creative and unique in ways that weren't exactly in line with mainstream therapy. I didn't literally think she meant, and I don't think she thought she meant, that this wasn't therapy. but you say it all the time. And yeah, if a client came into me panicking about whether or not the Torah was true, I would sit with them and ask both possibilities. Well, first off, I would you can explore the anxiety. You can explore the reality. Well, what would it feel like if it was? What would that mean for you? What would it feel like if it wasn't? What would that mean for you? What are you feeling? Maybe, I mean, it's interesting. Is it a therapist's role to even suggest people do research? I don't think so, but maybe careful, but just validating that their fears and concerns are normative. And yeah, I mean, look at right there. I connected it to the death thing earlier. Like, that's something that could be explored. Like, just why is religion important to you? Is it important to your family, your culture? Like, can you speak more about that? And you could really learn about people and themselves and help them learn about themselves, not confirm your own agendas and push them onto your clients because you think that's what will be best for them. Because you know what's best. And and your client should be grateful you were there for them because you saved their life, quote unquote. She was there for me in some of the hardest moments of my life. There's no question. She was one of the safest spaces during this whole doctorate program. There is no question. At least from my experience, like, I didn't feel safe with the professors. Are you fucking kidding? You saw how, what? The students. Maybe I would have hoped I would have had more connection with. I certainly, but with the, I guess I in my trust of authority, I trusted her, this mentor, my whole life's authority, rather than someone I just met who was my age. And I don't know if we went to those topics. I think we kind of respected that there were just areas you didn't really talk about. Nobody's fault, but there's a lot, it takes a village. It takes a village to fail a person that bad. And it's not just me, we're failing trans people everywhere. Certainly in the Syrian world. There's so much more to be done. I'm so happy to be a part of that. Don't you see how happy I look? And so, I hit my inflection point and I predictably doubled down. Because to not double down at that point in my life I would have had to question my therapist, I would have had to question my parents, I would have had to question my entire modern Orthodoxy education, I would have had to question the synagogues, every system I had ever really interfaced with beyond college. And college wasn't that nice to me. Right. Who was out there that felt like a safe space that I would have trusted? Few and far between, if they existed. A few existed. But when you compare, one, and that's how I think people probably see me today. I'm one radical in a sea of fucking bullshit. And it just feels safer to lean towards the bullshit. Even if it's bullshit, even if you're confused about it, it feels much safer. Because at the very least, I don't have to question everything ever that happened. I don't have to feel the pain of everything ever that has happened and that didn't happen. I don't have to question my own parents and their parenting styles. I don't have to question even being born. Wow, fuck. I'm glad I'm here, but certainly life's a non-consensual and very painful experience. Does that count? Does that count? Is this checkbox? Did you have suicidal ideation? Wouldn't call this ideation. Wouldn't even call it suicidal. But certainly it's coming to terms with mortality and the meaning of it all. I am safe. I am okay. I have things to do. I have reasons for living. Get off my case. Let me mourn. And so, I spent just 3.5 weeks there. I had Tisha B'Av at the Kotel, had a powerful night where a blind person led me to a candlelit poetry reading where a lady recognized my kippa as Syrian, and we had realized we had met before, and she was one of the people that initially helped me decide to become a psychologist, and she herself was becoming religious, so I thought she was the one, but it wasn't. And I had met her on my previous journey, and now I was meeting her again randomly while reading poetry. Oh, I read a hell of a poem that night. It was a tear-filled poem. Wow, that's cool. That's cool shit. It was raising awareness for suicide in the Syrian community and in the community in general, that we didn't talk about it nearly enough. That was what my poem is about. And grieving those we lost. Go fucking figure. I love when there's like the, wow. I was crying. I was moving. And the whole candlelit thing was in memory of this person had lost a friend. It was like this, was it a lone soldier died? See that? I can't even have a thing. It's hard. Lone soldiers are Americans that go to Israel to fight. They're looked at as really powerful to fight in the IDF. And they're looked at very highly because they don't have really necessarily family out there. They don't have to be conscripted to the army, and they are fighting. They're like the Baal Tshuva. They're like this person who justifies everything else that's going on there. And so this was a memorial for someone who had passed. I believe that was a lone soldier. It had been like 20 years running by one of their friends. It was a powerful memorial. But I certainly have to comment that Americans that go and fight for the IDF are literally participating in genocide with guns. I vividly remember some of the conversations from kids in my high school about how excited they were to kill Palestinians. And yeah, if they didn't use that kind of language, they certainly, people were very excited to want to get those terrorists. Have you guys seen the Black Mirror episode with the goggles and seeing them like bugs, seeing the enemies like bugs to monsters to, What? Wait, what? There's a group that has an ideology that they want to murder the other because they think they're dangerous monsters? I wonder which group that is. Am I talking about Hamas? I don't think so. Well, there's another one in that region that treats one group like animals. Like, how did they say it? The Israeli, one of the guys, Chaye, it was something like Para Adam? He used some kind of Hebrew phrase that meant they were freaking animals. They call them Amalek, some people. It's not Esav. Yishmael? I don't know. Whatever they call them, it's not kind. These are human beings. These are human beings. Anyway, I had a powerful experience mourning the temple, by the temple, and by the ruins of the temple, and felt more moved. And then, of course, that was marked the end, though. I could finally, in the end of the Zman at the yeshiva, so there were really no more classes to take, so I left, like, Zman is a semester, so I went on another journey. I loved Svat, so I was going to go back there, and I went hiking, and Isha Rebo, of course. I went to Isha Rebo concert, and my blind friend was having trouble getting into the concert. I ended up getting to meet him backstage and participate in this huge meal and dance with him, and I was like, God damn it, I missed out on it because another one of my friends got caught, and I stayed back to help him. And anyway, I ended up in Svat, and I loved Svat. And it's funny I mentioned Svat because Svat was like this. I was always told there was a continuous Jewish presence in Svat. Svat is the holy city of air, and it's one of the clearly examples of just, this is the Jews. And like, I've Googled it, and it's not. It was clearly a Muslim majority in Svat at certain time periods. Even the so-called riots need to be understood in context. Svat. There is no place in Israel that is the Jews. The Jews don't own Israel. It's not anybody's. It is everybody's. And it's certainly a place for the indigenous people who were there first. We got to be careful. Their most recent memory, who literally are sitting without a home right now, without a place to call their own, and not welcome in their own spaces. All right. Wasn't first. You can argue we were first. Who was first? Go look at my cartoon about the aliens. If aliens showed up if aliens showed up right now on Avenue U and said they were there 5,000 years ago, would you respect their claim to the land? Would you allow them to push you out of their homes? If they said, my home was right here on East 2nd and Avenue T, and this giant mansion, this was my home, and I'm going to take that back. Shower Zion, get out of there. That's our land. See you later, buddies. How would you feel? How would you feel? What do you mean? The alien says he was there 5,000 years ago. Maybe he was there. Who's to say? It's not to make a joke out of whether or not there is any Jewish claim to the land. The question is more, what does that mean to have a quote-unquote claim? And what it means to move people and how to integrate and live together. What does a more free Palestine look like? That's a great question. First, let's stop genociding them. Then we can start to talk about questions like that. Okay? Nice. But there's been a ceasefire. Who? Really? What? Yeah, tell me more. Tell me more about when it actually starts to, about how Palestinians have rights. When I can easily, as a Jewish person, just get claim to land there. It's hard to talk about my Israel journeys, that they were spiritual journeys. It was about the Holy Land. It wasn't about the politics. You can't take the politics out of it. They were happening. I was blissfully on my spiritual journey, so God bless Moshe David. And there is some, I will acknowledge, I do feel that, I think all land is holy. The idea that one land is holier than the other is problematic in and of itself, but certainly that land had some specialness to it, yeah. It was great. I love the waterfalls in Svat, wow, the sunsets, oh. And so, yeah, the rabbis tried to convince me to stay. That was real. There was one rabbi who was like a film thing in Miami person, and then he went, I think, and then he ended up there and was like, see, I had this fun lifestyle, but now I chose religion and I'm much happier, and you'll be happier, don't go back. I was just like you were just like me, don't go back. It sounded just like when I tried to leave the outpatient rehab thing when I was there for 3 weeks, and they were like, if you leave, you're going to come back a coke addict or dead. It was, if you leave or sameach, you're they didn't specifically say you're going to no longer be religious, but the way they were acting, they were trying very hard to convince me not to leave. And I was signed up for, I had an externship, I had courses, and it wasn't only going to be over Zoom anymore. This was because, I had things to get back to. And Syrian parties to go meet my wife at. I had not met my wife in my Israel journey. Oh, but I did get to wear the goggles by some waterfalls, and that was really special. Oh, love you, dude. And oh. And so I reluctantly, but also like with some confidence, did leave. I did connect to one rabbi out there who would call me right when I landed and push me to. I remember sitting outside a bathhouse, confused about my life and everything once I landed. It was really hard to land from Israel. There were all these kids that had been in Israel for the year. Basically, a whole bunch of Syrian people do go to Israel for the year after high school. Right after they graduate high school, they go to yeshiva for the year. And so when those guys were back, it's really hard for them to reintegrate into Syrian life. And so in the weirdest way, me at 26 felt very similar to all of these kids at 19. And there were many who I connected to, at least a group of people who I connected to, who were struggling with this thing, being in Deal in the summer, but also just getting out of yeshiva. And it was a ripe time to be, but I came back to Deal not the same person. I was still wearing a colorful Yoshi shirt, but I had a kippa on. I wasn't, no, Dad, I'm not going to take this off. And at least not yet. And so that was August of 2021. And we'll stop here, there, and I'll pick up. Thanks for watching.